The crew is back at it, swilling whiskey. We've got jokes, we've got giveaways, we've got your Implicit Bias Radio. Look, there's no trickeration in this week's episode. It is going to be very straightforward. What you see, well, that's what you're going to get. Unfortunately. But that's not just the way too many things work in the world, right? There's always a trick, an ulterior motive. There's always a little man behind the curtain. The Great Oz, in so many ways, just doesn't exist. He's just a lie, a manipulation, a facade to keep the illusion alive. I mean, if you think about it, almost everything in the world is some sort of manipulation. From the very beginning, it's even woven into the narrative of humanity's fall. In the Garden of Eden, the serpent, described in Genesis as more cunning than any beast of the field, couldn't get Eve to do his bidding without deception. The great deceiver tricked Eve with a subtle distortion of God's word. The serpent questioned and asked, "Did God really say?" planting a seed of doubt that culminated in disobedience and the fracturing of God's perfect creation. This act of deception became the prototype of manipulation, reminding us that the adversary's primary weapon in this world is not overt power, but insidious lies that twist the truth. Now, the New Testament reinforces this theme, portraying the world as a battleground where manipulation seeks to derail souls from the path of righteousness. In Corinthians 4, the Apostle Paul warns us, "The God of this age has blinded the minds of unbelievers so that they cannot see the light of the gospel." The verse unveils the reality that spiritual forces operate behind the scenes, sometimes obscuring truth and promoting falsehoods. The enemy's goal is to distort our perceptions, leading humanity astray through pride, greed, and fear. This manipulation has permeated into basically every fact of human life. Whether it's pop culture, whether it's the news, whether it's entertainment, whether it's music, what is supposed to be modern-day zeitgeist might really be by design. Think about the Cultural Revolution of the 1960s. It started with music in California. Or maybe it didn't. Frank Zappa, Buffalo Springfield, and by extension, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, the Byrds, Rick James, maybe the most obvious of all, the Doors, they all had familial connections to military intelligence. After all, Jim Morrison's father was an admiral in the U.S. Navy who also happened to be in command of the ship which is alleged to have been attacked in the Gulf of Tonkin to start the Vietnam War. By the way, Jim Morrison could not play an instrument, could not read music, but he allegedly wrote in his head almost all of the Doors' greatest hits and then translated it to instruments for the rest of the band. But I digress. Please, don't believe me on that. Please pick up Weird Scenes in Laurel Canyon and read the book. The point, however, really is this. The great deceiver is looking to trick us at every instance. In John 8, Jesus refers to the devil as a liar and the father of lies. Jesus recognized that manipulation thrives in a world detached from God's truth. He taught that only by abiding in his word can we discern and overcome the deceptions that entangle us. Then, and I quote, "You will know the truth," he said, "and the truth will set you free." Freedom, therefore, is found not in the absence of manipulation, but in the clarity of truth. As we navigate this modern world, this principle might feel more relevant than ever today. We live in an age of information overload, where truth is often diluted by competing narratives, half-truths, and outright falsehoods. Social media, political agendas, cultural ideologies, they can all manipulate our thoughts, our values, and emotions if we're not vigilant. Yet amidst the chaos, Scripture offers a compass, a pathway to discernment anchored in prayer, study, and reliance on the Spirit. In Ephesians 6, Paul lets us know that we should put on the full armor of God so that we may stand against the schemes of the devil. This armor, truth, righteousness, faith, salvation, and the word is not merely defensive, but an active force for combating manipulation. It equips us to discern and reject the lies of the enemy, enabling us to walk boldly in the light of God's truth. And this is why you're listening to Implicit Bias Radio. Weekly Whiskeys are next. We'll introduce you to the crew and bring you into the Mr. Lester's top secret podcast lair as we continue your favorite Saturday radio show / podcast. Cheers. We'll be right back. You are in for a treat on this week's episode of Implicit Bias. I'm Kevon Bordelon. That's not the treat. That's more the trick. The treat is going to be our weekly whiskey. Before we tell you what it is, let me introduce you to the crew here in the Mr. Lester's top secret podcast lair located somewhere in downtown Lafayette. We are recording this evening from the bar, and at the bar, it's an all New Orleans crew. We're going to start, and I love it. He wore the purple polo. I think he did this on purpose because he is K&B, known as Kennebra, also known as K&B like the old drugstore when we were kids in New Orleans. Grant Galatas of William S. Nacol Jewelers.
Yeah, let's just say it was on purpose.
But we'll say it was on purpose. Claim that, take it, and it works perfectly.
Even though it's got the little yellow.
It's got the LSU,
LSU kind of.
The LSU polo jockey and horse.
Yes, but in homage of K&B.
Okay, there we go. It's the purple to homage K&B. I appreciate that.
Good to be here.
Yeah,
as always.
Glad to have you sitting at the bar. Sitting at the bar with you is the consigliere, Chris Castro. He is the, our version of legal counsel here on the show. Chris, it's a pleasure to have you. Another New Orleans guy at the bar.
Yeah, good to be back in the top secret podcast layer over here.
We are thrilled to have you back with us. Just so you know, you're going to need to almost eat that microphone when you talk into it. You can't leave it all the way over there. You can pull it towards you. We don't care. We don't need no stinking rules here. We're all right.
I'm with you, my friend.
All right, appreciate it. In the chair like mine, as the Rustic Renegade is not here with us this week, Rene Girard has somehow meandered his way into the lower chair here.
I just like sitting in the comfy chairs, and besides, I get here early before everybody else so I can camp out and sit in the comfy chair.
This is true. We record mid to late evening on the show.
Evening.
And you are always here like mid to late morning for the show.
Well, I got to avoid the traffic. I just hate, when I'm leaving the shop, I get too much traffic on Congress and I can't make that left turn. So I got to leave when it's quiet.
Look,
2 in the morning.
We need to make space for one of only 15 certified master tobacconists on the planet. So Renee, you got the special chair because your shop, it's special in Louisiana because there's nobody else in the state that even has access to someone with your certifications when it comes to tobacco.
That, and we're the oldest shop in the state, too.
Oh, I did not know that.
I'm the oldest continually owned tobacco shop in Louisiana.
Even the ones in the French Quarter?
Yeah, because they've changed ownerships, and actually a lot of them have closed and new ones opened up. So this year is going to be my 40th anniversary of doing this.
Congratulations, Renee. Yeah. That is outstanding. 4 decades of cigar knowledge and general bull coming from your shop. Yeah,
hey, a lot of that.
But that's how it works, right?
Yes.
It's exactly how it's supposed to work. We appreciate it. All right, so let's talk about why this is a treat. We are going to feature this week, and I've actually got to reach over and grab the bottle. Renee, actually, why don't you grab the bottle? We'll let you hold on to it, and you can show it off. We are going to feature one of our first really perplexing blues on the show. We did this bottle years ago, and it was time to revisit from our weekly whiskey sponsors because, there's all that unobtainium out there, Renee. There's all that whiskey that people can't get a hold of. And this one, whoever carries it, when it gets carried, it is almost always available, and it's at a ridiculous price. And every time we get it, it's really, really good. It's called Pure Kentucky.
Yeah, and I mean, I would think that most people, the reason why it's available is it's a non-assuming bottle. It just, it doesn't look very special.
Okay, so I'm going to say this to our partners at Willet, even though they're not partners. We just love you enough to tell you that might be the ugliest whiskey bottle on the planet.
Oh yeah, it's not.
It does not look.
No.
It looks
like a cheap bottle of whiskey.
It does.
Yeah, except for the little badge that says XO on the front. But that you can overlook that real easy.
It almost looks like a cognac kind of bottle. Usually you have that fat bottom, long neck.
Yeah, kind of. That real long neck like that.
And just out of curiosity, did you pull up the book on this? Go to the archives to see how this was.
I know how it rated. I know how it rated. I don't have all of the notes on it.
Yeah, I don't think it was. I think it was before this book.
It was. It was book
the
one.
Old book.
It was book one. And, the crazy part is where this rated and how this rated kind of started a run on this whiskey in Acadiana. Because to that point, it's a non-assuming bottle. You look at it and you go, man, it looks like a cheap bottle of whiskey. But the reality is, so many bottles of whiskey that people are paying so much for today, 6 years ago, they were just cheap bottles of whiskey. They were $35 here. They were $48 there. They were, $52 there. Now people are trying to get $300, $400, $500 for them in the secondary market, which that's a whole nother discussion. The secondary market crashing as we speak, which is a beautiful thing because now it means that we're starting to get availability on all the stuff that was unobtainium.
And at a reasonable price.
And it's at a better price. Not necessarily reasonable just yet, but I can kind of see it coming. Here's what I love about this. So it starts off the proof. This is 107 proof.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
So let's start there. So Chris, you obviously were not around the show. The consigliere was not here when we did this bottle on the show the first time. I noticed you were taken aback when I told you what the proof was. What do you think of this bottle?
I have to tell you that, probably when you first brought this bottle out, I was not even close to drinking bourbon on any kind of category. Or any level that was, I was a clear liquor drinker, let's say. And in the last year, or maybe last 6 months, I've kind of changed my tune. And this bottle is beautiful in color. I mean, nice and kind of deep, not too deep, but a good amber, kind of deep caramel type color. And smooth after the first hit. It's the first draw is quite a little stingy, a little peppery.
Okay, a little pepper for you. There's a little bit of rye in the mash bill, maybe.
Maybe so.
Okay,
I'm not quite sure. See, that's my my novice.
No, that's okay.
The rye, as I understand, though, kind of gives you that little kick and that little bite. But after you get to maybe sip number 3, it starts to flow down easily. And I would never have thought that this is 100+ proof. Just really easy going, smells great, has good aroma.
Okay.
And I'm enjoying it, I have to say. And like you say about the bottle, it is terribly unassuming, which is, I guess, there's something about the neck of bourbons. Isn't that true?
So there is what's called a neck pour.
Okay.
Sometimes on a bottle, which means when you open it, it's just been sitting in that bottle. It has zero oxygen underneath it. It's not gotten really any opportunity to open up, almost like a wine.
Right.
So there is a theory that the neck pour sometimes is a little more spicy, a little more hot than the rest of the bottle once it's sat for a while. Put this in a glass, and at 107, this to me is an absolute sweet spot. I was having a conversation with the manager at a local pizza restaurant this week, and the conversation was around, where do you like your proof? And I said, look, to me, life really begins at 107 and goes up. This is the perfect example of that to me because you get just enough heat. It's really easy to drink. And the flavors on it, I find, are really nice. And the one question that I have sometimes, especially with Willett Distillery, who is the distiller for Pure Kentucky, it's small batch. So sometimes you get some offerings that are a little off. This, I'm yet to get one that's really off on this Pure Kentucky because it hits so easily. Renee, we'll go to you, then we'll go to Grant.
It drinks like whiskey. I mean, I don't pick up all these flavors, and Caleb's not here to give us all the metaphors and stuff like that. It's just a good whiskey. It's something that I can drink, and I mean, I normally like 90 to 100 proof. At 107, it's not over that much, but it's very smooth. I like it. It's a good drinking whiskey. It's definitely something I can drink.
And you really wouldn't know that it's 107 proof. Just drinking it neat as you are, especially out of a Glencairn glass, which is taking the fumes and pushing them straight through and concentrating them right through the nose of the glass.
That's how I get to smell it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to smell it in a rock tumbler. That's why I use a Glencairn all the time because I can smell it a lot better, get a little bit more of the nose for it.
All right, Grant, what are you thinking?
Actually, just from the looks of the bottle, it wouldn't be a neck pour. This would be the ostrich neck pour. It's got
Giraffe
at least
pour.
a 9.5-inch neck on this thing.
Everybody gets it.
It's a fantastic flavor profile. It's oaky. You have they said it was aged in white oak barrels, new white oak barrels.
It's a bourbon. It needs to be to classify as a bourbon. That is one of the 4 characteristics. Yep.
Yeah, just a wonderfully smooth 107 proof. We like the 107 plus, and this one is just right in that wheelhouse.
I get that big caramel bomb off of this, almost like it was a caramel dissolved in alcohol. But I get, for lack of a better term, if you've ever had like Mexican chocolate where they put vanilla in it, I get vanilla on this. I get caramel with vanilla. I get just that little hint of spice that you're talking about, Chris, that little bit of pepper that makes the tongue dance just a bit, right? We're not talking full brass pole dance, but we're talking wiggling just enough. I mean, it has been one of my favorites for a long time. Ever since we really had it on the show. Actually, I got to go back. The first time I had this, Elizabeth and I were in Louisville, Kentucky, and she had scheduled some tours for my 50th birthday. So a couple of years ago, yeah, I'm old. And we end up at Willett, and they are pouring as we go through, and they handed us the glass. And when I just took a whiff of the nose, that release was a little more, not spicy, but a little more, and I'm trying to think of the right word here, like baking spice to it. It didn't have pepper to it. It just had more clove. It had a little more nutmeg to it on the nose. And I thought, oh, this is going to be really outstanding. And then when I tasted it, I said, man, that release may have been the best I've ever had of this. But this release still holds true to exactly what we had at the distillery.
One thing I've noticed, I've tried to notice lately, is when you take a sip, what we say, it has legs.
Yes.
You can still see it. I mean, it just sits on the glass, but it's not overly viscous. And I've found that I like that when it does have some legs to it, that flavor, it kind of coats your throat and the top of your mouth and just keeps throwing that flavor at you.
This to me is bourbon, bourbony McBourbon all day long. When you think of bourbon, this is what you expect.
Yeah.
Whether you're sitting by a campfire with a bunch of guys, it's a little chilly outside, whether you're at the Kentucky Derby a couple weeks ago, whether you were sitting there having a cigar, when somebody says bourbon, this to me
is the flavor you think of.
It is the most prototypical bourbon profile I've ever had. Now, all that being said, we're going to go to Walker, who's probably going to hate it because we haven't talked to Walker in quite a while. We actually took the camera off of Walker because of how little we talked to him. But Walker, I'm curious because you finally have a glass back.
Yes, I do. I didn't like it at first, but as I kept sipping it, kind of smelling it and everything, like you said, a big caramel bomb. That's kind of what I get as well. It has gotten better every sip, but I'm not going to lie, at the beginning, I was not a big fan of this.
Okay, so what was it that put you off on the first taste?
I think it was more of the aftertaste. I don't know. It was a little strong, not like peppery or anything. It was like a strong aftertaste that I couldn't put my tongue on it. I'd have no clue, but I didn't like the way it tasted.
Okay.
But as I kept drinking it, I do enjoy it though.
Okay, that's fair. So why don't we start with you? We're going to let you rate it on the Morse Whiskey rating code, which is red, I wouldn't drink it even if it was free. Yellow, I would only drink it if it was free. Green, I would buy this. Or blue, I would seek this out. And what would you pay for this, Walker? What do you think this bottle runs? Well, not what do you think it runs. What would you pay for this whiskey in the bottle compared to what we've had on the show previously?
I'll give it a green.
Okay.
$43.
$43. All right. Let's go to the bar. Mr. Castro, what are you thinking?
I'd characterize it as a teal between the green and the blue.
Okay, hold on. Whoa.
I like it.
We understand you're the consigliere, but you don't get to split proverbial hair.
And I would see
is it a green or a blue?
If I see that on the shelf and based on kind of your intimations about what the price may be or where it might run, I think I'd pick that up because I've never had it before in my personal possession. So I'd say, if I saw it, I'd grab it.
Okay.
And I would think that probably runs based on what you're saying about, the quality and the relative affordability. I'm going to say 40.
Okay. Here's the really interesting part. That XO on there. Grant was doing some research into that XO. Grant, tell us about that XO that's
it's-
actually on the bottle.
Yeah, it stands for extra old. So when you were describing it when we first had it on the show, you were saying at a surprisingly reasonable price. So I've got XO on the bottle, and I got you telling me that it was.
So what's the normal
reasonably
rule?
priced. Yeah, well, $10 a year.
$10 a year.
Yeah, so I don't know where to go with this. I'm going to settle on 312. just to push myself. No, kidding aside. So was yours a green or a blue? Because you settled on teal. I don't know if we got you.
If I see it, I'd buy that bottle. So I can't say I would go out there, and I'm still, again, a novice at it, so I don't go shopping for bourbon. But when I see good bourbon, I've seen Kavan not too long ago in the store and
Yeah.
got some advice on what's a good product, and bought what was recommended, which turned out to be a great bottle. If I saw that, I'd pick it up. So
Green.
I'd
We'll call it a
to me.
green.
It's
So two greens. Grant?
I'm going to give it a blue.
Okay.
I was fine with the oak and the caramel. I was just curious though, Walker, because Walker said something when I first started doing this, because I wasn't a whiskey or bourbon drinker. It almost like a medicinal. It was like tasting a medicine that kind of puts you into the old. You're too young for the whole Robitussin
Thank
era,
you.
but
It was kind of like, I guess you could say,
yeah,
like a
kind of
medicine.
medicine-y.
Yeah, just a little bit.
I'm still going to blue this, just because once you said vanilla, I got the caramel and the oaky, but when you threw vanilla in there, that's me. That kicked me into the end zone. So I'll blue this. I really don't know where to go with price, so I'm going to say 59.
59. Okay. Renee?
I'm going to definitely give this one a green, and I'm looking at 35.
35. Okay. So first of all, I called this and I waited for this. And I've got to give a little bit of backstory. One of my favorite bottles of whiskey is Weller 107, which is 107 proof, right? And I call this my Weller 107 killer because that Weller 107 is fantastic, but it's unobtainium. You can't find it anywhere. It's the old antique. Nobody's got it. It's got the red label. I mean, everybody's looking for it. And when they do, people are paying $125, $130, $140 for it. And it's a 40 plus bottle of whiskey. This, I give a blue because I would put this in a cocktail. I will drink this neat. I will do anything I feel like doing because this is, depending upon where you find it, this is about a $37 bottle of whiskey all day long. So Renee, you said 35?
Yep.
Renee wins the What Would You Pay Championship belt chain presented by Box Drop of Lafayette for Pure Kentucky, which I would put this bottle up against so many other bottles we've had that are $200, that are $150 all day, every day. If you blind tasted them, you'd almost never know. We got to wrap, Grant, but go ahead.
So how do you explain the XO on the bottle? I mean, I thought it went pretty much by the aging.
So
How many years?
it all depends on how the distillery decides to label it. For those who don't know, Weller 12-year-old should be a $50 bottle of whiskey, $40 bottle of whiskey at most. Somewhere in there. It's going for $200, $300. So yeah, this to me, it hits the Weller 12 and the Weller 107 and turns into a fantastic whiskey. We got a break. We're going to come back. No tricks, only treats. No trickeration on this week's show. This is Implicit Bias Radio. The tax man cometh, and they do their best to trick everybody on this week's episode of Implicit Bias Radio. I'm your host, Kavan Bordelon. I am joined in the Mr. Lester's TSPL by a great crew. We got a couple of New Orleans guys sitting at the bar. We've got Chris Castro on your right. On your left, we've got Grant Galatas of William S. Nacall Jewelers, also known as K&B. Grant, obviously, in the purple. And the consigliere. He is Chris Castro, Esquire.
Lakeview, baby.
Yeah, okay, there we go. And then, of course, there is Renee Girard sitting in the chair opposite mine, Louisiana's only certified master tobacconist, which we're going to very quickly ask Renee, what would you pair with this Pure Kentucky?
Well, there's a cigar that's coming out. It's not out yet. I have smoked some. It's the Perdomo Legacy.
Okay.
It's coming out the end of this month, beginning of June. In fact, we'll be the only shop in the state of Louisiana that's carrying it because it's limited
Shock face.
limited allocation. So we get it. And he's got it's a hybrid wrapper shade grown that I think would go very good with this.
What would really offset the flavors of this Pure Kentucky? This caramel, vanilla, a little bit of pepper, long finish on this bottle.
It'd be more of I would look at towards more of a medium-bodied cigar.
Okay.
Something with some seasoning to it, like you'd either the Perdomo sun-grown or the new hybrid shade-grown he's doing. I think it would go very good with this.
Hey, there's our cigar advice for the show. The Perdomo, which one? Because you always talk about Perdomo.
The Legacy.
The Legacy, the Perdomo Legacy.
It's just coming out. We should get our shipment in either the end of the month or very beginning of June. So they're starting to ship out now.
If you're looking for a reason because you're in New Orleans or you're in Monroe and you want to come to Lafayette, there's your reason.
There you go.
There's your reason. Come here. You can find whiskey at our weekly whiskey partners, and you can go to Piper's Haven, grab a cigar to go with it. Renee, trust me, he will actually tailor it to whatever you like. He'll give you what you're looking for. All right. So, we talked about the tax man cometh at the top of this segment, and it only is fitting when we talk about trickeration that we dive into this story. I had a coworker that, to be honest, and this was 2 decades ago, almost 3, I was not real fond of. Didn't particularly like the man, but he had a saying, and it stuck with me. And just because I didn't like him, just because he might not have been the most kind or likable person, doesn't mean he wasn't right. And what he used to say was this: figures lie and liars figure. So there's a story out on social media where we are now seeing that Brown-Forman is obviously, like every other distiller, taxed on the whiskey they produce and the whiskey they store. There is a tax that they must pay the government. And the social media post is really interesting because it says we shouldn't be paying taxes at all. Brown-Forman pays, $894 per barrel that they produce of whiskey. Now, that's a 66-gallon barrel is what they outline in their story. And they run the math. Remember, figures lie, liars figure. This isn't necessarily a lie in the figures. It's a lie in the feeling. And what they say is Brown-Forman is paying $4 billion a year in taxes on whiskey. Is that number correct? If you extrapolate the math, yeah, sure, it is. But it's what they're not telling you that's oh so important. And this is how figures lie and liars figure. Liars look at it and say, oh, this is the part of the story that's important to you. And they give you that math, and that math is correct. But they don't turn around and say, here's what they sell that barrel for. Here's how much money they are making per barrel. Now, I actually ran the math, but I didn't bring it with me. The consigliere did. So, Chris, I'm going to let you start to kind of dive into this. And, Grant's kind enough to actually even push the mic towards you.
Well, as you say, oftentimes, Kavan, and the mantra maybe of this show would be is that check it out yourself. You go find the facts, and you give us the stories that you'd like to discuss on the show, on the program, and I have to tell you that I look into them all.
Good,
and I research what I can find out in a relatively limited period of time.
yeah. But sometimes it's less time than others. Let's be honest.
But what I did is I looked up Brown-Forman. You can go right to their webpage, and it tells you their financials, and you can look up their 83-page financial report, and it shows you that generally over the last couple of years they're paying right at about 21 to 22% overall in taxes on their products.
So what you're telling me is that, and the debate about whether we should be paying taxes at all is a different debate. The debate is, are the numbers that we're given misleading to try and make you think,
right,
it's this massive number?
Right. Well, the blurb, I guess, or what we pulled off the internet, the little social spot.
Yeah.
It certainly makes you want to feel like, oh my God, Brown-Forman, oh my, no. But when you look deeper into the math or the numbers of what they produce to their stockholders and or the public, because I just pulled this down and this is a public document. That's what it shows to be, is 20, 21, 22%. And in my opinion, just personally, I know I pay more than 21% in my taxes, so. I just don't find it to be outrageous in it. So, and
like I said, the debate about whether or not we're paying taxes is a whole different, because we know that right now in the country there's a lot of reference to, hey, we didn't pay income taxes in the United States for the first 100+ years.
Oh, yeah, it was late 1800s, early 1900s that they put income tax in.
And what paid for the government and all of those services and everything the government offered back then?
Tariffs.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story. We'll talk about that maybe a little later on in the
One
show.
of the things I wanted to ask about this, they pay taxes on a barrel before they dump it and bottle it.
Yes.
And each barrel varies in liquid content because some of them evaporate.
Correct.
Some of them, so you're paying taxes on stuff that you don't have.
So
That
is a legitimate concern
that's kind of weird.
because
I would see taxes on a bottle.
there is a tax. There is a tax on the full distilled barrel, the distillate,
Right.
when it goes into the rickhouse. Then there is a tax yearly as long as they hold it
But
in the rickhouse.
it's kind of like a property tax, like what we have here in
it's
Louisiana.
more of an inventory tax.
yeah.
if you
It's
think about it.
it's a property tax. I mean, that's
Right.
what the state hits us up with.
Which means that, yes, as distillate evaporates in the barrel on the shelf, because there's no real way they're not going to go look at hundreds of thousands or
They're not
tens of
going to
thousands
dip
of
the barrels to
Correct.
find out.
They're not going to dip each one and say barrel ABC 1 2 3 4 5 has
Lost
58
3
gallons in
gallons.
it. Yeah, and this one has 62 gallons in it. They're not doing it.
Yeah.
And primarily not because the business wouldn't do it, but it's because the government wouldn't do it and couldn't verify it. The government's not going to send somebody out and that's going to be their job all day. Well, who knows? It might be. But I mean, at the end of the day, it would just be a process that would be rife for fraud.
Yeah.
So they charge them on that. They charge them the tax. They charge them the rickhouse fee, the inventory tax until they bottle it. Once they bottle it, they cash it out, they sell it. But here's where you and I and everybody in here comes into play. So they have paid taxes on the distillate that gets put out there. They pay taxes on the distillate that sits in the rickhouse. They bottle it, they send it. Do we pay sales tax on that product that's already been taxed?
Oh, yeah.
We pay tail tax, right?
Yeah.
And
that
when-
goes to
and
the,
then we
to our
pay
local.
And the taxes they paid is part of that cost that we're paying the sales tax on. So we're paying tax on tax.
And then what you have to consider is you don't just pay normal sales tax. There's a lot of times in a lot of places a special liquor tax
Right.
because of what it is.
Yeah. Excise tax.
Excise taxes.
Yep.
Yep.
So the conversation here and what really fascinated me was the number of people who were like, yeah, this is terrible. Oh my goodness, these taxes are so bad. They're playing on your sentiments. Literally, the people who are putting things out like this, they are trying to trick you. They don't want you to understand the math behind it. Once you understand the math, it might change your perspective, but you got to understand all the math. Now, do I believe we should be paying income tax? Do I believe that we should be taxed on tax? No.
Well,
But that's a whole different conversation
Well,
as to how the story's presented.
and it's also, everybody has that misconception. Oh, businesses need to pay taxes. Guess what? Businesses don't pay taxes. They collect the taxes from their consumers because a business just puts it in the price
Okay.
of their commodity.
Hold on. You pay an inventory tax, don't you?
Yes.
You might
And
build
guess
that
what?
in,
It's
but it's not like a sales tax.
Right.
You've got to account for it.
Right.
You've got to make sure that you're still making money.
yes. Yeah.
It's passed on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of times they
So
do
the
get passed
consumer
on
ultimately pays my taxes. It's just the way it is.
and pays
all,
their own taxes.
All businesses do. Well, consumers pay all of the taxes.
Fair. Grant, I see you reaching for the microphone because you deal with this every day too.
Yeah, well, Chris spoke well enough for both of us here at the bar. It's a reason I married a woman who has a master's in tax. All I can say is, look, it's 21, 22%. It's right around where it should be. Like you said, there's a figure missing. They didn't say what we're making on. They were making on each barrel. So all I got to say is, stop your honking, Nancy. Keep putting out whiskey.
Hey, and that's at the end of the day.
That's it. That's all I got for you.
No, Grant, that might be the best.
Ring the bell.
Yes, ring the bell because that might be the best call out of all of this conversation. If the tax was so egregious, would they keep making whiskey?
Yeah.
If it wasn't profitable,
No, they would.
would
shut
they keep
down.
doing it?
No.
Not even close.
And I want to say that Brown Forman has been around since like 1879
Oh.
as an entity. So
Brown Foreman made it
This-
through Prohibition.
right. So I
They've
mean,
been around forever.
So when the representative says in the little, and what I would say trickeration, and I would call it today's lingo, clickbait.
And
It's a great way to put it.
And the thing is, for people that don't know who Brown Foreman is, Jack Daniels. is owned by Brown Forman.
So is Woodford.
Woodford,
Right?
Just
I mean,
one
they
of
are
the few,
We're not.
exactly.
Yeah, we're not
big
talking.
names.
We're not talking unknowns here. We're
Correct.
talking major whiskeys.
We are talking that we got the finger, and I mean the 1 minute finger from Walker, which means that we're going to come back, last segment of hour one, this week's episode of Implicit Bias Radio. We are going to give away prizes in this segment. We're going to actually announce who's won some prizes. We are going to tell you that bonus content is out there. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcast, and you can get portions of Implicit Bias Radio that are not going to air in the normal podcast or air on radio, which means it is uncensored, it is unedited, and when Caleb's here, it's usually unhinged and usually illiterate. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. So you can go find that bonus content there. I want to give away a prize right now. So we're going to do that. We're going to give away 3 on this show. The first one comes right here. And this is what it's for. Summer supper at Mr. Lester's. The crew from Implicit Bias will be down there Saturday, May 31st. Mr. Lester's is going to feed us. Mr. Lester's is going to provide beverages of the adult kind. They're going to put up hotel rooms for us and take care of the crew and those who win a pass for 2. An invite for 2 to come be with the crew. We're not recording a show. It's just come out, have fun, eat, drink, explore Mr. Lester's, meet the crew, and have a dang good time.
It's always a good time at Mr. Lester's.
Now, if you follow us on social media, you saw that we put that post out there, last weekend, right on Mother's Day. So several thousand people saw it. We got some people who followed the instructions. I put them into the Wheel of Names, literally the Wheel of Names. And in lieu of actually doing the Wheel of Names right here, which is also a radio show, so no one would see it, so they wouldn't know, I'm just going to announce who the Wheel of Names came up with. Troy Pelsia, you have won an invite for 2, you and a guest, summer supper at Mr. Lester Steakhouse, Cypress Bayou Casino, Saturday, May 31st. Mr. Lester will provide the food, the drink, the hotel. You get to join the crew for, dare I say, a damn good time. If you didn't win an opportunity to be there with the crew for that night, guess what? Follow us on our socials. Follow us on X. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Facebook. We're going to put more giveaways out there because we do have more invites for that to give away. Later on in the show, in hour 2, we are going to give away pours of birthday bourbon. And we are going to give away a bottle of 4 Gate whiskey. We're going to let Grant pick one of those bottles from up there on the bar. And Mr. Lester's is going to give that away to one lucky listener as well. All part of the giveaway we announced on Mother's Day. So let's get to the final segment of hour 1. And this to me is so much fun because I love the answers that were given and the way that the media was not necessarily allowed to try and tell you their story. They had to tell the whole story. The United States has ordered from Boeing a new Air Force One, and it has been ordered for quite some time.
Actually, that was ordered during the first Trump, and he renegotiated the contract because it was too expensive, and it's 2 of them because they can't have just one; they have to have 2.
And they're almost a decade behind
Oh yeah,
the production schedule. It's bad.
yeah.
So Qatar, on Trump's Middle Eastern tour, offers the United States Office of the President a state-of-the-art Boeing 747.
Yeah, Series 8.
A Series 8. I'm curious. Anybody here have an issue with this?
No, that's one less airplane we got to buy.
Okay.
It all depends on how advanced your bugging system detectors are these days.
Yeah, but
You would almost have to go through this thing with, I mean,
well, they're going to do it anyway because to do an Air Force One, they can't just take a regular 747. This thing has to be dismantled. They got to wire it up. They have to put all the gadgets and everything in there. And when you do that,
but it's funny that's the first thing we go to. I mean, it's a nice deal. But did you see that while he's over there, he got Qatar to commit to $960 billion in Boeing? No.
Well, okay. There's $960 billion in Boeing. There's another 1.6 or 1.2 or 3 trillion.
Correct.
That they are committing to the U.S. But that's kind of a side topic.
Little rabbit hole.
It is, but it's okay. I'm with you, Grant. The first thing I thought was, man, this is a presidential plane coming from a foreign country. I don't,
Yeah,
and I
see,
know
it's
that's being
not-
received by the Department of Defense. I get it.
It's not ready to use.
No, and I get
They
that.
got to do it.
They
So
gotta
they
go
got
through
to
it.
they got to go through it. So if they got bugs or whatever in it, they're gonna find them
Or
because they dismantle that thing.
Yeah, but do you take that risk? Seriously,
okay.
Renee, these days, I mean, if we were if we were doing it for somebody else, we would give.
our CIA would
come on.
bug the snot out of it.
Right, exactly.
There'd be more bugs in that thing than on a pile of dog duty in the corner for 6 weeks down here in downtown Lafayette. I mean, there'd be bugs all over it, right?
Call Orkin.
Now, I think that's a legitimate question. Did the media ever even ask that in any of the articles? I didn't see any reference to that in any of the articles about this. All the headlines were very different.
Oh yeah, they're all upset that Trump's receiving it.
No, I saw some concerns that that
Okay,
that
good.
The that
It's a
the
foreign
security-
country.
It's a security
Yeah.
concern, absolutely. And
But the big headline, the one that was everywhere, wasn't that one. What was the one that was everywhere?
which is
Which is,
why not take it?
well, no, the big headline that was everywhere was Trump receives gift from Qatar,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
When it's being received by the Department of Defense. It's not being received personally. It will be
Right.
owned by the United States government, not by him.
Well, it'll be owned
would
by the Air
retire-
Force and
Correct.
retire to the Trump library.
Correct. It would be retired when it was retired to the Trump library. But again, the media tried to tell you one side of the story, and he busted them in a news conference.
Right.
Like, he actually looked at him and said, look, we have been giving foreign aid to everyone forever. And I think, Grant, that what the media couldn't say, the quiet part they couldn't say out loud, was exactly what you just referenced. Because he's like, look, when you're given a free putt, take it. And that's the reference that he used. When you are given a gimme and you don't have to take the putt, you pick it up and you walk away. And I agree with him from this standpoint, except for it's a security risk. But if the media says that, the media then has to admit, oh, we've been bugging everything we've been giving to everybody for the last 100 years.
Well, that's our job.
Yeah.
It's a Trojan horse.
Beware of Greeks bearing gifts. Beware of Qataris bearing gifts. I don't know.
Well,
Beware
I mean,
of anyone bearing gifts,
and I'm sure all the
particularly in the world
F-16
of politics.
all the F-16 fighters we sell to these other countries, and the Japanese, the Turks, everybody that uses that. I'm sure they're not getting the most latest, greatest with all the toys in it. It's a toned down version of.
Oh, there is no doubt it's a toned-down version. It is
because
not-
we can't give them all of our top secret stuff. And I'm sure we have tracking software built into those aircraft to where we can see where they're at and what they're doing.
Oh, I'm absolutely
Yeah.
positive.
Well, I think it's the jacked up TikTok, because
Yeah.
I mean, what's China doing? They're giving us this product, or hey, make it happen for you, and people
Yeah.
buying in it, loving it, and here we are watching what you're doing.
So this is an interesting conversation, because there are people who will argue and people who will say, I can't confirm this. I am not an electrical engineer in any way, shape, or form. I'm not a software engineer. But there are people who have said for decades that your smart TV in your home,
No.
the reason it's so cheap is because all it's doing is collecting data on you. It can look at you. The cameras on it can work. The audio recognition can work. The recognition systems that are on it.
It tracks what you're watching.
Yeah.
What's listening right now?
Yeah.
Oh, there's no
phones,
doubt
yeah.
that phone in your hand is absolutely listening.
That's 6 phones in this room. They're getting confused because they're all hearing the same stuff.
There is an old saying, and I love this, and it actually came from, what is it, The Social Dilemma? That was the documentary on Netflix. Somebody said, when you are getting a product for free, you are missing the point. You are the product that's for sale.
Right.
Yeah.
So all the apps that you get for free, all the things that you sign up for, all that stuff, and look, I'm guilty of it. We live in 2025. Everybody's got all these apps on your phones. Well, guess what? The minute you agree to those terms and conditions, you've agreed to give everything away. And you notice it says, I have read and agree to.
Yes.
Nobody reads it.
No.
They know nobody reads
You
it.
can't read it.
No, you physically can't.
Chris is an attorney and he can't read it because that language is so ambiguous that
Well, look, I thought you were going to say it was like Walker, who just gave us the 1 minute finger, who can't read it because he just can't read.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Walker. I see the smile. You know I'm just messing with you. You gave me the 1 minute finger. We're going to wrap up hour one. We're going to come back with hour two. We're going to even talk about the fact that, yes, you can get and we will produce some bonus content for this week's episode of Implicit Bias Radio. We'll be back with more fun in hour two. Hour two is always more fun on Implicit Bias Radio. I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon. Welcome into the Mr. Lester's TSPL. That's the top secret podcast lair located somewhere in downtown Lafayette, Louisiana. If you're listening in New Orleans or Monroe or Arizona or Minneapolis or New York or Chicago, we appreciate you listening because we know that you are downloading us on whatever podcast app is available, whether it's Google, Spotify, whether it's iHeartRadio, whether it's Apple Podcasts. You can catch the whole show and you can catch bonus content, which, by the way, little teaser, because this one might get, I believe it was Ben Stiller who called it freaky nasty, is we're going to do the Diddy trial update conversation in bonus content this week. So that will upload to bonus content. Let me introduce you to the crew who's here with us in hour two. In the chair like mine, he is Louisiana's only certified master tobacconist, one of just 15 on the planet. And yes, I meant that, on the planet. He might not look very smart, and he's not, but he's still a certified master tobacconist. I'm kidding. Renee is an incredibly wise individual, which is why we have you on the show.
I'm not a smart man, Janae.
At the bar, we got a couple of New Orleans guys. On your left, he is K&B. He's wearing K&B purple, which is also stands for Kennebra. He's Grant Galatas of William S. Nacol Jewelers. And we have consigliere Chris Castro of Castro Law Firm. He is here with us as well, sitting in shorts and slides, and we can't show you the angle because he wears his shorts too short. He is Walker Griffon. We don't want to see that on our socials. But yeah, Walker Griffon is with us. Walker, it's good to have you back. Good to have you sampling whiskey.
Good to be here.
I'm actually shocked that you have not finished that glass yet.
I'm just sipping.
Just sipping. Good. Good. Okay. Let's talk about the trickeration that is continuing to happen on the planet. You can almost put money on it. You can almost put money on it that whatever you and we are being told, the actual truth is almost the opposite. So we have heard for a long time, nothing's happening. Nobody's getting arrested. Nothing's going on until some people got arrested in New Jersey. Nothing's happening. Go check the arrest records. So for those who don't know, there is an ICE detention center. And by ICE, I mean Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, ICE. And some lawmakers decided that they were above the law and decided to make their way in, just like a judge did in, Washington, where ICE came into the courtroom. It was Wisconsin. Thank you, Grant.
Yeah.
Looking for a defendant in her courtroom.
Right.
And the judge actively told the defendant where to go to get away from a legal and lawful warrant. Take a guess who got arrested.
Yep. The judge is in the big house.
The judge is in jail.
Yep.
Just like some of the people who went into this ICE detention center and apparently physically assaulted ICE agents. At least that's the story that's out there as well. If that's true, we'll see. I haven't seen the video, so I'm not going to believe it just yet.
I have seen the video.
You've seen the body slam video, Renee?
I've seen the body camera video. I haven't seen the body slam.
Okay, I've seen some body cam footage,
Right.
but not a body slam.
And everybody's, they're tussling around the gates and breaking into the gates. Now, I don't know why you would break into a prison, but, that's stupid for me. But you break out of them, you don't break into
Well, I
them.
think they were trying to break some people out who were supposed to be in.
No, their premise was we wanted to see what was going on, where all the ICE people said, if you'd have just said that you wanted a tour, we would have given you a tour. You didn't have to try to break in, but no, they wanted a video op is what they wanted to be on video and make it seem more than it is. But now some of them are going to jail, I think.
Oh,
some of them are getting arrested.
Some of them have been arrested. I believe they're expecting additional arrests.
Yeah.
And, Chris, my question to you is, just because you're a U.S. senator or a U.S. congressman or woman, does that exempt you from trespass, from breaking and entering, from entering federal facilities when you're not authorized to be in them?
Certainly not. I mean,
You got to eat that microphone, brother.
Certainly not. It's you got to abide by the rule of law, regardless of what your status might be. And certainly, what was going on there, and I've to a degree, I've kind of checked out what I would call the clickbait.
Yeah.
Because the clickbait says that an ICE detention agent or an ICE agent was body slammed by an individual who came there on the premises.
That's what they're saying.
And
I haven't seen it yet.
And like you, I haven't seen it yet either because I'm looking for the truth as best I can find it.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you that in the things that I do, I just want to know what the answer is. I work on behalf of people who might get hurt and things like that, but maybe it's not always the case as I'm being told.
No, people lie.
And that's fine because the point is that I want to know what the reality is before I go to the next step.
Wait, you're telling me people make stuff up to fit their own point of view?
And that is the clickbait trickeration of the basis of this show. And it happens in both directions all the time, consistently. And that's why what you say is go study it, find out the answer for yourself, and see what the answer may be. And I didn't see it. I saw certainly a lot of tussle, a lot of back and forth, and why these individuals were there trying to get into this facility. I'm not quite clear on what that was all about, but I just, I don't know what to say, but
I do.
I found a lot of
It's stupid. I mean, that's what it is.
I found a lot of equivalency to, and I'm like going wrong.
I know where you're going. I think I know where you're going.
I think you know.
I think you're
going.
picking. I think you're picking a day in early January many years ago.
I think I am because when you look at the video, you see very similar kinds of activities.
I'm going to disagree with you from this level. It's very much not like that because we now know today that on January 6th, thank you, Clay Higgins, who has been on the show and been a friend of the show, that there were FBI agents inside the Capitol before anybody got in who went in dressed one way and came out of offices dressed as supporters. The doors were opened to the Capitol and Capitol Police ushered people in. This was an actual break-in.
Yeah, I just don't know that there's a lot of footage that certainly a lot of the violence.
Agreed.
There's violence on both sides.
I'm not saying there wasn't some violence, but who it came from gets really, really interesting.
Right, and that couldn't be.
Yes, it can.
And that's the dichotomy that we're dealing with.
It's the question that we always have to ask. That we don't always ask because these are the same people who have been saying for the last 12 years, no one is above the law. And now they go, I'm above the law. I get to break in. You can't do anything about it. Not quite. Grant?
What Clay brought to our attention was that what the FBI called them was...
the ghost buses part of it?
27 human resources.
Confidential
human
informants.
resources.
Confidential human, informants.
And when Christopher Wray was sat in front of a committee, he said, no, there were no FBI agents there. And then later on, when Clay dug a little further, there were 27 of them who they aren't FBI agents. I mean, he was playing that that two-way speak.
Yeah.
But
they were agents of the FBI, not necessarily FBI agents, which are two different things.
Human resources, which means they were there on the behest of the FBI.
Well, they were working for or with the FBI at that time. Correct.
But I actually did hear today that there is congressional oversight at the ICE detention facilities, so they do have the right to be there. The procedure that they used, how they showed up, is what's at where the water gets a little murky. Because what they were saying was, look, if we make them aware that we're coming, they're going to clean the place up. They're going to Windex the windows and do what they have to make everything look nice. Okay, yeah. Well, it's the same thing Biden did when he went to El Paso. When he went to El Paso with the immigrants, they had time to prepare it and cut the grass and trim the bushes and do a lot of stuff. But there was actually one congresswoman who was wearing a bright red dress.
Was that Maxine Waters?
No,
okay.
She's 915 years old.
Yes.
This
I
woman.
don't think Maxine can body slam anybody.
Yeah.
This
woman. Yeah, she looked like she made Cam Jordan look like just a
wide
league
receiver.
Football.
Yeah. Okay.
but I think it's correct to say that look, this is just like Van Hollen going down to El Salvador.
Yes.
And I think it's all just for the optics. It really is.
It's
You can show
trickeration.
up. Yeah, you can show up.
That's the design.
You have the right to be there as a congressperson. You have the right to be there, but you can the way that
You just got to
go about
request it through the proper channels.
But this young lady, she was bowling through people left and right. I did not see her actually body slam anybody, but her arms were flailing, and she was just waiting for someone to make contact with her so she could say, "I've been assaulted."
Was it cyclone technique?
It's-
If
I
done
mean,
correctly, no
it's-
can defend.
Yeah.
The windmill.
Yes, the
Yeah,
windmill.
Eddie
Cyclone
Murphy,
technique.
yeah.
Yes, yes.
But
Flailing arms just in circles above the head and around the upper torso.
I mean, it's performance art is what it is. Everybody wants to get their 15 seconds of fame on social media and just to try and make their point. And it's kind of disgraceful actually, because once you elevate yourself to a position of congressman or representative, you have to conduct yourself in a certain kind of way. And when you watch the video of this is it's childish.
It's pure
The-
kabuki theater.
The mayor
Is
of
what it
Newark,
is.
the mayor of Newark got arrested, so he was all upset about that too.
And he was there, and
Yes.
and he was part of all of that.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and I think what you're saying exactly is that it's kabuki theater. I mean, sadly, because had they just done the proper steps of going in and being asked to represent or
I mean,
asked to investigate, and
It
things
is
like that.
it is a secured
yeah, absolutely.
prison
It's a prison.
facility.
Here's the
So
best
you
part.
have to maintain
Sure.
security.
Here's the best part to me. What did they find?
Nothing.
And
They
he-
didn't
They
get
ever
in.
Went in.
No, they actually ended up getting in. Yeah, but they actually went and said, well, it was clean. Maxine Waters is the one who said, she's like, it was clean. We went in, it's clean. They're doing okay. These people, but we had to go in and discern that and figure that out for ourselves because we don't trust. It's like, why? Because you might send a lawmaker down to the El Paso border and have them cry at a fence that actually isn't a fence with children and juxtapose the photos so you blend them together so it makes it look like she's standing there crying at children behind a fence when she really wasn't. Because that never happens.
But what you said earlier is a very good point. We're above the law. You got AOC putting out videos saying, lay your fingers on me. But I mean, you have the right to be there. Just go about it in the correct way.
Yep.
But when you have Congress people, you're blatantly saying it on TV that we're above the law. So when you said, yes, these people are projecting that, the law doesn't apply to us, that's not correct.
No, it's grossly incorrect, ill-informed, and it is an affront to every single one of us. Even if you say, I support this.
Yeah, but that's because most of those people have been or thought they were above the law for so long that they now really, really believe it.
Well, and I think
They don't realize there's a new sheriff in town.
I think what's actually happening is though, I think people like us, I think
Are tired of
people,
it.
not only are we tired of it, but I think people who have heard them say nobody's above the law forever, at some point, cognitively, a human has to step back and go, wait a minute. You used to say nobody's above the law. You're out there breaking the law.
Yeah.
Are you now saying you're above? Like, people are starting to put two and two together, and the trickeration, people are starting to see what's behind the curtain. People are starting to see and now realize that, you go look at governmental involvement, and I'm going to bring us back to the monologue here for a minute. Go back and look at governmental involvement in music for decades. Which brings us kind of to the Diddy trial. I mean, that's going to be in our bonus content. But think about this. Why would our intelligence agencies be involved in music and be studying and experimenting? And please don't believe us on this. I know it sounds far-fetched. There are lots of great books written on this, right? Mysterious Happenings at the Canyon, about Laurel Canyon. Chaos is another great one. There are great books written about the fact that our government has been involved in trying to craft social zeitgeist, the feeling of the times to create social upheaval. Go ask Ice Cube about who was involved in gangster rap and why they were doing it and what was happening. There are plenty of people who have really strong beliefs about that. The question is, why? Why create all of these different veils and curtains and magic tricks that are in Washington and in LA and in Miami and on the East Coast and the West Coast and in the South and in New Orleans back in the 50s and 60s? If you start going into Dr. Mary's Monkey and what they were doing back then, I mean, you start going into all these things and you're like, but why? Why all of it? Why so many? And then I think you realize that, well, it's because sooner or later they got to give up the ghost on one. And they recognize that if they don't have 5 more waiting, those ghosts will finally come home to roost.
I'm going to suggest money and power.
Is that the book? Oh, that's just your answer.
That's the answer. Why did it happen? It's money and power. It's, you know, I don't know what to say about conspiracies, but conspiracy theories. But I think at the end of the day, it's the wind that blows, and it is money and power that wants to guide the ship
And keep it.
and keep it. And I don't know that's new
No,
amongst
I would agree with you.
humankind, and that is our sin.
I have to ask Chris, because you brought it up briefly. The Wisconsin judge,
Yes.
how did you feel about that?
I have to admit to you, I'm not familiar with that. I
Okay,
got to say.
the ICE
But I
showed.
did
ICE
say
showed up.
recently-
She's a circuit court judge. ICE showed up at the court to detain someone who was in her courtroom. She showed him the back door. She told them to go away. She showed him the back door. She let him out in rear entrance and into the parking lot where he could escape. That surprised the absolute hell out of me. I mean, do you give up your robe to fight Donald Trump? Do you give up everything that you've worked for your whole life to help this individual who's on trial, obviously for something nefarious, to escape Trump's?
Well, and let's remember, he's on trial for something nefarious. He was not convicted.
That blew me away.
Right.
This woman put everything, her entire life on the line for this.
The only thing I could suggest about any of this is that due process is, available to all of us, and due process of whether you're guilty or not guilty, and the arrest or not. And I mean, an arrest is an arrest. It's not a trial, but everybody's afforded good due process, and you should be afforded it. I'm not quite sure how far to go with your status as an immigrant or lawful alien or what, but I do believe that due process is a requirement, and it can't happen. It's a slippery slope, and we don't like purple shirts with gold polos, and so you're going to be the next person we're going to pull out of here.
Hey,
But
that
look,
is the most lawyer answer we have, and that's why he's consigliere.
But I would say though that it doesn't seem appropriate that a judge would guide somebody out in a
Look,
way.
that's all I was asking for, because he was
I would
already
agree with that.
he was already in the midst of due process, and there were other people there for him to make sure that he was going to account for other due process. And just in the simple process of serving a warrant and taking this person into custody, this judge in her robe said, "Here's the back exit. Come with me."
So the process of the processes was the problem. And that
Exactly.
is your Implicit Bias Radio. We'll be back with more. The Pope is Catholic and other things that are tricking you out here on Implicit Bias Radio. I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon, at the bar on your left. If you're on our video socials, you can see Grant Galatas of William S. Nacall Jewelers. We call him K&B. He just wore the purple shirt because he planned it that way.
Ain't there no more.
Sure. No, and it's not. The Ain't There No More, that is the consigliere, Chris Castro of Castro Law Firm. And of course, in the chair like mine, he is Renee Girard of Piper's Haven, one of only 15 certified master tobacconists on the planet. The theme of this week's show is trickeration and what we basically endure every single day. But know that trickeration happens on pretty much every side because it has to. Game theory dictates that it has to. And if you don't necessarily know what game theory is, think of it this way. You sit down to play a game with somebody and people know, because they've run the numbers, that if the other person cheats, they're going to win a certain percentage of the time more than if no one cheats. Which means that if you are engaging in game theory, you have to assume the other person is cheating, and you have to try and work within the framework to put your toes on the line of cheating in order to have a chance.
No, what you're saying is you got to cheat better.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. That's what it amounts to. And I am starting to form an opinion, because we spent time the week before the Pope was elected. Now, that show aired in Lafayette, Louisiana, 2 days after the Pope was actually elected. We had that conversation a week before. But now we are starting to see more and more come out from Pope Leo XIV, the new Pope of the Catholic Church. Initially, within hours of him being elected Pope by the conclave, and then vested and taking his vows, we were told oh, this might not be good for the conservative side of the Catholic Church. Because he seems to be traditional yet lean, much more liberal on social issues. And now we are seeing the heads of the left side of the Catholic Church explode because of some of the things that Pope Leo XIV has said, written, done, which, shocker, they're just Catholic, right? He has not condemned anyone.
No.
But he has said there are behaviors that are wrong. And it completely blows me away that people are just figuring this out. As a cradle Catholic who kind of had to rediscover things. I'm curious as to what we're thinking now that we're kind of watching this evolve and we start to understand a little bit more here in the Mr. Lester's Top Secret podcast layer.
I got a kick out of, right after they announced who it was that won. They already had one of his brothers. They were interviewing one of his brothers, and he was upset that he wouldn't answer the call. He was trying to call him. What I want to why is it that the Pope always has to pick a name? Why is that? I don't know.
You know what? We're going to ask Father Glaude.
We need to
We're going to ask Father Joe the next time they're on the show.
Because you know what? Instead of Leo the 14th, why couldn't he be Pope Bob the First?
He's from Chicago.
And he's Pope Bob. We never had a Pope Bob. He's the first American Pope. He could be Pope Bob the First.
If he's from Chicago, he could have been Pope Vinny the First.
Well, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Very easily. But it's just interesting to your point that, especially as an American Pope,
oh, yeah, that's never been done before.
we see that very uniquely here in this country because, we've seen pictures of him. We know he's got faith. He's a White Sox fan.
Yeah.
And we've seen pictures of him at baseball games.
Right.
You've seen people who said, hey, that guy, he was the priest at my confirmation.
Well, in fact, I think there's a priest here in town that actually went to school with him in the seminary. They interviewed him on local TV that he didn't know him extremely well, but he went to seminary with him.
Grant?
I'm going to make this real simple. I think it's bad that within the first week, everybody's trying to get him on their team and put him in a box. I mean, it's a very historic event. I'm not sure about the names thing. I don't know if it's just tradition. I don't think Pope Bob doesn't really roll off the tongue.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to draw the line at that one. But
What about Pope Bob?
Yeah.
We got a new movie coming out.
But no, it's a shame that everybody wants to immediately throw the political aspect into this and try and grab him for their team and put him in a box. I can't imagine the pressure with this many people globally as the Pope when you just want to do your job to uphold your faith and fulfill your obligation as the newly elected papal to have to say who you're going to defend politically. The video that you sent was there was a flag with multicolors on it as he was walking in a line of greeting. And the comments below, and this is what we were talking about earlier. Once you have a video like this, you really don't know what to believe. But as he's walking, why would you shove a colored flag out anyway? Just this is the Pope, so just say hello.
So ring the bell, number one, because the reality of this is we didn't. I mean, it's not like you saw him look at it and run away from the flag. He was on the opposite side of the aisle from the flag.
But immediately everybody dissects it.
Correct. We have no idea what the man was thinking. We have no idea what was going through his head. And everybody in the instant says, I know what he did. Look what he did. Look, you're on my side. As opposed to, and this is all I've ever wanted from a pope, which is follow the doctrine. Follow the doctrine. One man started it. One man said, this is my church. There's only one that can draw a direct line to him. Every single one, including the one that he started, has lots of people in the way. But there's only one. So go back to the man. Do what the man said. Follow that. Tell everybody else do the same. Stay out of politics.
I agree 100%. And I will tell you that, as in my job, I spend a fair amount of time looking at videos. And the videos are the things that we'll talk about who did what, where, when, and how it happened. And after looking at, the proposal of the clickbait, which was sent out there that the Pope is avoiding LGBT, whatever group, the reality of it, in fact, after clicking and stop, click and stop, click and stop, is that the flag says PACE on it, which
Pace?
is correct, which is an Italian flag
Okay.
in those colors that started in 1961, and it was the flag of peace. That's what PACE says
There-
in
okay.
Italian. And you have to be absolutely attentive to what is going on there. So the I hate to say that, but the clickbait was that, oh well, the flag, the Pope is avoiding LGBT, this sector of individuals, and does not appreciate these people, and etc. is absolutely incorrect, totally off base, 100%. It's terribly.
It's one of the things that you see, and I will even say I think Pope Francis was a victim of this to a point. Selective editing, selective quoting.
Oh yeah.
And that can be used to completely try and not just create a new story where there was none. It can be used to dismantle stories. I mean, even go back and look at the very fine people comment made by Donald Trump, allegedly, where he was supposedly talking about white supremacists. If you actually read the entire paragraph, he says, there are very fine people on both sides, and I am not talking about these particular people. What did they do? They took the one sentence and they ran with it.
And they edited the back part out.
And
Yeah.
by the way, the guy that did that was the same guy who somehow allegedly was mistakenly put onto a signal chat with the Secretary of Defense and the Vice President of the United States. I'm just saying, please don't believe me on that. Look that up.
I got a
but it
kick
hit
out
its
of
mark. It hit its mark, didn't it?
well, and
Because, like you always say,
It created
go
the
look for
trickeration.
yourself, and 92% of the people did not go look for themselves.
You're being generous.
well, it's just like when I was researching this story, there was comments that the Protestants aren't happy with the Pope.
Why? Who cares?
Well, wait,
You're
wasn't
Protestant. The Pope doesn't belong
didn't
to
that
you.
Didn't that start back in Martin Luther? And when he posted the notice on
Yeah.
the door, he wasn't happy with that Pope either. So but
Guess what,
that-
Renee? I'm not happy with you. Grant, I'm not happy with you. Chris, I'm not happy with you. And I'm really not happy with Walker because he gave me the 1 minute finger. We're going to come back. Don't forget, go find bonus content. We're going to we're not going to dive into Diddy. We're going to talk about the Diddy trial in our bonus content. We've got 2 more segments of this week's episode of Implicit Bias. Trust me, you don't want to go away. The penultimate segment of this week's episode of Implicit Bias Radio. I'm Kevon Bordelon, your host. We've got a great crew for you here in the Mr. Lester's top secret podcast. They're located somewhere in downtown Lafayette. I think I should give something away. What do y'all think?
I
sure.
think you should give 1 or 2 things away.
Well, I tell you what, you know what? I might as well give away both things. So we're going to see who's listening because we're going to reach out to all 3 of these listeners to give them their prizes. We'll contact them via social media. And you will be able to go pick up your prizes at Cypress Bayou Casino, Mr. Lester Steakhouse. You got 30 days. If not, we're going to give it to me. And we're going to go ahead and give those names now. So we've talked about Troy Plessia. You and a guest have tickets to Implicit Dinner Saturday, May 31st. You can pick those tickets up whenever. That's easy. We're going to put you on a list. Yes, there will be someone standing there by the velvet rope, which is about 2 feet wide, and they're going to let you in because your name will be on the list. But these are the other 2 names. It is this month the 30th birthday of Mr. Lester Steakhouse at Cypress Bayou Casino. So they are giving away from or through Implicit Bias, not from them, through us, 20 pours of true unobtainium. Birthday bourbon from Old Forester will be given away. Candy Duce, you have won a pour of birthday bourbon.
One of the pours. One of the
pours.
20.
Yes, you've won one of the 20. You've won
No,
a
you didn't
pour.
get 20 pours.
No,
you
you've
got
won
one.
A pour.
A
You've
pour
won a
of the
pour.
20.
Yes, the language matters here. You've won
Yes.
a pour.
Chris,
A
correct
is
that for us.
singular.
I'm thinking we're getting 20 drinks.
No. No, I am glad y'all caught me on that because that was not what was running through my. I was like, you have won a pour. And they're like, nah, just one. I'm like, yes, just one. Justin Stelly, you have won a bottle of Fourgate.
Ooh.
You have won a full-on
That's-
bottle of Fourgate. You have to pick it up at Mr. Lester's. I'm going to send you the list for that.
That's more than one pour in
That
there.
is more than one pour.
Yes.
That
Okay.
is more than one
Okay.
pour.
Bring your own glass.
Yes.
So congratulations.
Well, you don't need
to,
a glass.
No, you can bring the bottle home.
Yeah.
Congratulations to Troy, Candy, and Justin. So thrilled for you. There's no trickeration here from the crew of Implicit Bias. Just the penultimate segment. That means it's the second to last. for this week's episode, and we're giving out prizes. Love doing it.
What a great
Love it,
thing.
man.
I love being able to give away other people's stuff. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really cool.
And
Well,
great
hopefully
stuff,
they
too.
share it with us.
Yeah, well, I'd love for them to share
Oh,
it with us
that's-
because the Four-Gate stuff is fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
It is absolutely wonderful.
Great stuff at a great place.
Yes. Okay. So trickeration is always best when it comes back to bite those in the ass who have instigated the trickeration. And yes, New York Senator Kevin Parker, I'm talking about you. I am talking about you. I got Kevin Parker's name, and I hate that term, like get your name out of my mouth. And I just don't like heebie-jeebies. Kevin Parker, I'm talking about you, just so you know. Because I think this is some funny right here.
Yeah, it is.
So, Renee, do you know why I'm talking about Kevin Parker?
I think I read the article, but it's been a while.
Okay, so I'm going to give you some other names here that are going to be common. E. Jean Carroll. For those who don't know who E. Jean Carroll is, E. Jean Carroll has accused at least 6 men of assaulting her. 6. 1 was not prosecuted for assaulting her. 1 was prosecuted for slandering her. That was the lawsuit. Because they could never put one of those people in the same building with her. They could never come up with any corroborating evidence to her claim. But the really funny part was her claim actually had run out of the statute of limitations until my boy Kevin Parker. My boy Kevin Parker decided in the New York State Senate that they should create a one-time jubilee for people to be able to go back and make these claims and be able to come after them in a court of law, even though the statute of limitations had expired. Anybody want to guess who E. Jean Carroll accused of assault? Anybody remember?
Yes, I do remember.
Does he happen to reside on Pennsylvania Avenue right now?
1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Yeah. Who's getting a new airplane, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ring the bell. That's funny. That's funny. Okay, so this goes to trial. The judge admits we have no corroborating evidence to say that they were even in the same room. Now, the defense in the case basically said we are not even presenting a defense because there's no reason to. And the judge, because it was a bench trial, said, well, fine, I'm making a ruling, and made his ruling. But that case never would have been brought had my boy, my man, Kevin Parker, not presented this in New York to create a one-time umbrella to extend the statute of limitations.
So he changed the rule just
Yes.
for this.
Well, that's what makes this so funny. Because now, guess who's been accused of sexual assault and gets to make the accusation because the statute of limitations should have been up, but it's not anymore.
So Kevin forgot to undo the rule that he made.
And take a guess who's getting accused of crimes that, and look, I don't know if the man is guilty or not.
Well, he's getting accused, just like the president got accused.
What I know is that karma is a,
Yeah.
and it seems like some of what comes around goes around.
Yeah.
Right?
But now he wants to change that rule back, but it's too late because he's now been accused.
I
He's
find
like,
this,
dang, I knew there was something I forgot to do.
this is the, and look, this to me gets biblical, right? This to me gets biblical. Father Glaude talked about it when we were at Mr. Lester Steakhouse a few weeks ago. When Father Glaude said, you know, you really want to look at Christianity and Catholicism and you want to sum it up that we can have rules, we can have behaviors, but we still have to love everybody. He said, the woman at the well, Jesus said, I do not judge you, right? Nobody else is here to judge you. Go and sin no more. Essentially, though, this guy basically said, I want you to judge someone, and completely forgot what he might need to be judged for.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know that he's guilty in this. I'm not accusing him of being guilty. What I'm saying is the fact that he created a situation in order to prosecute someone else, and now he is falling under that very same rule, is to me the perfection of trickeration and people thinking that they're smarter than everybody else and realizing that maybe they're not.
Well, they think they're above the law. I mean, there again, you go to those same people
Oh, I thought
that
we
are
had,
above the law.
Chris was writing notes. Come on, Chris.
Yeah.
You want to jump in on this. I can see this coming.
Well, I don't quite.
You keep us honest, and I love it.
All right. So the honest part about that is that in our state of Louisiana,
Different rules.
different rules, but there was a proposal passed by our legislature and approved by the Supreme Court of the state of Louisiana
Okay.
that extended the
Statute of limitations.
what we would call in Louisiana the prescriptive period.
Okay.
That's the only state. Only in Louisiana do we call it prescription.
Because we are under a different code of law.
the
Napoleonic
Napoleonic
Code,
Code.
yes.
But in the rest of the world, we'd call it the statute of limitations. But whatever it is, it's a same thing.
Same thing, different name.
So, but we passed a law maybe last 2 years ago, I want to say, that allowed for claims of abuse by clergy to extend greater than, at that point in time, it was 1 year. Typically, Louisiana law was prior to last year was 1 year from the date of the incident or the action, you had to bring your claim. And the legislature passed a rule, and the Supreme Court approved the law that said that you can bring your claim. And they set forth a period of time from that point in time that you had to bring your claims in order to
From the past that would
right, but from that
Yeah.
point in time, maybe 1 year or 2 years from that point that the state approved the legislation or something along those lines that said you could bring in a claim then, which obviously the defendants in the case would have been the priests.
Well, and look,
They said, hey, this you violated my substantive right because look, those claims would have been prescribed.
So where I fall with this is I think it's interesting because I think there are instances where we are seeing statute of limitations get changed in the interest of victims. Truly.
True.
New York was a little different
Okay.
because literally that was brought and all of a sudden E. Jean Carroll jumps in and files. The time frame was so odd. It wasn't like, oh, we made it a year to 3 years.
Right.
It was, well, that was gone 20 years ago, and we're 10 years past the statute of limitations. We're going to create a 2-year window where those can all of a sudden come back, or a 1-year window, which just happened to end with an election. I mean, it was really, really close. Walker's giving me the 1 minute finger. We're going to wrap this up. Extending the statute of limitations in the interest of rendering each his due, justice, is interesting, and I have a follow for that. Changing justice in order to get selective prosecution is a whole nother thing for me.
Absolutely.
Which brings us to our final segment where we've got one more story where we're going to see what justice happens to what media outlets when we come back. And then, well, we're going to record bonus content, but you won't get that unless you subscribe. Final segment, this week's episode of Implicit Bias Radio. I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon. Thanks for being with us. We appreciate you hopefully solving the problems of the world, one, or if you're following this particular show, probably 3 or 4 weekly whiskeys at a time, which means that we are discussing the things you're not supposed to talk about in polite conversation, and we're doing it while sipping whiskey with microphones, which is a whole nother bag of worms. But the one thing we can say is this, is that a drunk man's words are a sober man's thoughts, which means there's no trickeration here. Not to suggest that Renee is drunk. I'll tell you that Renee is drunk. I'm kidding. He's not. Not on this show anyway. No drunkle here this week, right? Love it.
I had 2 little ones. That's it.
At the bar, we've got Grant Galatas of William S. Nacall Jewelers, another New Orleanian, much like me. We've got Chris Castro from Lakeview. So we got like 3 New Orleanians in the house this week. It's tons of fun. But the trickeration always needs to be called. It needs to be pointed out. And if possible, it needs to be eradicated. Brendan Carr, chair of the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, who I'd love to say I've never run afoul of in the past, but if you listen to the show, you know. The funny part is it never happened with this show. It happened way back when I was at Channel 10 in circa 1997. Yeah, it was 97. That's a whole nother story. We'll get into that maybe in bonus content as well. But here's the real fun part. The real fun part is the FCC is in charge of, for lack of a better term, keeping broadcast outlets honest with regards to the license that they are given. So anybody here in the TSPL, Walker, if you can speak in a full sentence, does anyone know who, yeah, it was funny, I know it was Walker. Does anyone know who actually owns the airwaves in the United States for broadcasting rights?
I would say the people of the United States owned it.
Ring the bell. Those airwaves are ours, which means that in order for corporations to broadcast and make money off of them, they have to be licensed by a federal commission. Federal Communications Commission. Brennan Carr, the guy who runs that show. And he floated, please don't believe us, on MSDNC, otherwise known as MSNBC, but he floated this week that licenses might be in play. So when you start thinking about organizations like CBS, sorry, I sneezed. If you've got an organization who goes and selectively edits information, and we've talked a lot on this show, go look this up. Please don't believe us that there was an interview with a presidential candidate that CBS actually edited the actual answer to the question out and inserted the answer to a different question.
Wait, are you talking about the incident that they won an Emmy for?
I am talking about the incident that they got sued for.
Yeah, but it's the same one. They won an Emmy for it.
Which is just how crazy this is.
Yes.
They won an Emmy for lying. CBS's 60 Minutes won an Emmy for lying. If you take someone's answer to a question and substitute a different answer for that question, you are broadcasting a lie. And Carr this week floated, maybe those licenses that are out there, maybe they need to get revoked. Maybe they need to go to somebody else. Can you think about and understand the major upheaval? And look, I work for CBS. We're on KLFY Plus, which is a CBS affiliate, which means that we're either going to be in trouble or they're going to be like, okay, you do what you do because this is what we do. We call out everybody.
Tell the truth.
Yeah. We tell the truth.
Or call it like we see it.
We call it like we see it. We do our best to discern what is the truth. We call it like we see it. And we want you to go make your own mind up.
Right.
Because we're usually the other side of the discussion. But therein lies the point. The point is, who's been telling us what to believe for the last 80 years?
Yeah.
90 years? Who's been doing that? Anybody know what broadcast letters have been doing that forever?
Well, you got the big three, the ABC, NBC, and CBS. That was the big three. In fact, it was actually originally NBC and CBS. ABC is a spinoff of NBC.
And that didn't start with TV, folks.
No, that was radio. That we're talking, late teens, early 20s.
Damn, how old are you?
Yeah,
I was there.
he was around.
I was with Tesla when he was coming up with all these theories.
when
Creating the wheel.
when Moses came down with these 10 commandments. Yes. When Moses came down with those commandments, Renee was there.
Did not know that, though,
Yes.
about what he's talking about.
Yep. So he knows what he's talking. But the truth is,
history.
they started with radio.
Yeah,
Yep.
sure.
They owned the radio rights. Then when television came out, this is the thing to understand about how long trickeration has been in play. And I've got a communications degree, an emphasis in broadcast journalism. What I will tell you is this, and hopefully you recognize that I'm honest enough to tell you this. There is no such thing as an unbiased story. What we tell you is biased. Of course it is. But they try to lie to everybody out there and say, we're not biased. Yes, you are. You're biased. I'm biased. They're biased. He's biased. She's biased. Everybody's biased. But they don't want to admit it. How do you know who's telling you the truth? It's the people who tell you, this is what we believe. This is how we see it. Go look it up for yourself.
Agreed.
It's the only way you find the truth on your own. Not to say that there's your truth and my truth. There is a definitive truth. But again, the only way that you find that definitive truth is by us searching for it without somebody else feeding it to us. Don't they call your social media stuff something? They call it a feed. Chris?
I was just going to say, it's the standard old phrase. It's cliche, and cliche because it's true. There's three sides to every story. And that's, your side, my side, and what happens to actually be the case, the truth. So,
And that you might actually hear, because we're going to get into bonus content, because we got to do it like right now, because Walker has given me the finger, and that's the God's honest truth. That's no trickeration. We hope you'll join us for next week's episode of Implicit Bias Radio. If you want the bonus content, find us on our podcast platforms, subscribe. Trust me, those will be more fun because one of these conversations started to happen while we were in break and is just going to get worse. We will see you in 7. God bless and have a great one.